Hi and welcome to the Financial Fox, the show where we decode how tech is transforming finance and helping us invest smarter. I'm your host Steffi. I've been in finance for over a decade and started investing myself in crypto in 2017 when it was still the Wild West. Well, we are far much down the line right now, but still volatility, but volatility is vitality. That's what Michael Saylor is saying. Today I'm joined by Ali Martinez, a leading on-chain and technical analyst and a seasoned investor across crypto, stocks and real estate. Ali is known for spotting market moves before they hit the headlines, especially when it comes to Bitcoin. So what we are going to be talking today, we are going to unpack the current BTC cycle, dive into key on-chain signals, the indicators that Ali is looking at, and also we are going to be touching on Ethereum and Solana. What's hype, what's real, and what investor and trader should watch next. Remember that all the content on the show is not financial advice, is just our own views, and it's very important that all of you goes out and do your own research, your own due diligence, because remember, is your money at risk when you do any investment or trading in the stock market or even in crypto. Our podcast is supported by HIVE Digital Technologies, and more about them later in the show. Now, I just want to say one thing. If you are listening at our podcast and you are not yet subscribed to it, please take a moment to click the subscribe button. Remember, your support is so important for us to grow the channel and educate more people about crypto. Let's get to my conversation with Ali. Brilliant. Ali, it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Hey, everything is good. The market has been rising, so it's always a good day when the market is up.
Yeah, exactly. What makes a good day is the sun or the market is up. Listen, so I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show, because usually I interview mainly founders, CEOs, but rarely I have on the show somebody that is actually an investor and a trader. And I think it's very important also to share this perspective with our audience, because our audience is made of investors, and they are looking for inspiration, they're looking for ideas, they're looking for opinion, they're looking for views. Obviously the channel is not financial advice at all, because it's very important that everybody does his own research, due diligence, and whatever you do in the investment space is all it come down is your own decision. You need to be convinced, but I think it's also important to bring perspective. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. From a technical perspective and an investment perspective, personally, I'm currently just trading on the futures market. I used to have a couple of bags in spot positions, and I sold around 80% of them back in January. There were certain indications that told me to sell. Maybe for some people, it may seem like I may have missed the boat, right? As I definitely did not buy the bottom at $75,000. I didn't. And right now I'm just sitting on my cash reserves. I do not see this as missing the boat, right? Because I was able to buy at an average price, I mean Bitcoin specifically, around $19,000, and now being able to profit around $100,000. It was a really good decision to sell and stay in profits. You have seen that even Warren Buffett has been sitting in profits for, or in cash for several years, right? But in crypto, it seems like whenever you're sitting on cash, you're getting wrecked or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is right now at a very critical point from my perspective, right? I mean, it has been able to kind of like rebound from that $75,000 level, and is back at nearly all-time highs, which is a really good. I feel that the current price action that we're seeing can be defined as a parallel channel from a technical perspective, where the key resistance is at 107,000, and the key support is around $78,000. I think that this is a very well defined range. I really believe that what we could be seeing right now is a potential rejection of the upper resistance of this channel, and we could potentially see a correction towards 98,000 or even lower, right? But yeah, that's basically what I'm seeing right now in the market, and that's how I'm currently trading it.
How long have you been trading crypto?
Well, I've been trading crypto for quite a long time, actually. I was first an investor, right? Just buying and holding due to some of the. I was basically exposed to some of these capital controls in across different countries where I was traveling at the moment, and I became aware of Bitcoin in 2012, I will say.
Oh,
I
wow.
started using it more as a cross remittance token more than anything. But it wasn't until I started to realize that the value was rising time over time that I actually started buying. But of course, like this thing of those people that have been holding for years and years is a great story. It's definitely not mine. I was in 2017, for example, after Bitcoin, no, 2018, right after Bitcoin broke $20,000. I seriously believed that it was gonna go up to 50 or even $100,000. I didn't sell at the moment. Then Bitcoin started going down. Then I got involved into somebody told me to send them some Bitcoin because they had like a high performance trading bot and this and that, and I lost a lot of my capital this way. Yeah, I think since having learned these lessons, I have managed now to just buy and hold and sell when certain indicators tell me to sell, and then buy again when certain indicators tell me to buy. I think that MVRV momentum indicator has been really, really good in the success that I have had. Kind of like investing in Bitcoin, because while it doesn't tell me the exact top, it definitely tells me to sell at the right time, and it tells me definitely to buy at the right time as well. In this last bull market, I was able to buy around $19,000 based on this indicator, and I was able to sell in January at around $100,000 based on this indicator as well. Of course, right now prices are a little bit higher than $100,000, but I do believe that there is potential, right? I mean, for a potential top to be forming.
I'd like to introduce you to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies, a publicly listed company building the next generation data center infrastructure with 100% renewable energy. HIVE was the first crypto miner to go public and the first one to have an AI strategy. With over 2,600 Bitcoin on their balance sheet and operations in Canada, Sweden, Iceland, and Paraguay, HIVE is fully committed to transforming communities, rebalancing the energy grid, and delivering value to shareholders with a low dilution and cash focus approach. If you don't know HIVE, check them out at hivedigitaltechnologies.com. So what is the top that you're looking at? Or the range? Let's look at the range.
Right. Let's call it the range, right? The range. If you go back to previous price actions or previous bull markets, I mean, you can kind of like see that usually a range forms at the top. Back in basically 2000, it was basically between $66,000 and $30,000. Of course, it's a $30,000 price range, but whenever you account that Bitcoin actually went down to $15,000, then if you would have at least exited at $30,000, you know what I mean? You could have probably doubled your Bitcoin if you would have bought back then, right? But right now the range that I'm currently looking at is between $107,000 and $77,000. But if we go now zoom in a little bit, right? I'm actually currently looking at the $101,600 as key support level, and I continue to look at the $107,000 as a key resistance level. For me right now, if we lose support, there is a very big likelihood that we're gonna drop towards $98,000, and I do believe that $98,000 is a very, very important area of support. Several indicators, technical and on-chain indicators, are telling me that these are a very important area of support. For example, the MVRV pricing bands are telling me that the major area of support is $98,000. And from another metrics where I can evaluate purchasing behaviors across different price points, right? I see that around 1.72 million wallets acquire 1.2 million Bitcoin at $98,000, making it a significant area of support. So yeah, these are kind of like my price ranges right now. And of course, I do believe, let's say, I mean, there is a metric going on around about the global liquidity, right? And how Bitcoin is highly correlated to the global liquidity. That could be the case. And that's why I'm paying close attention to that 107,000 resistance level, because we haven't had a daily close there since forever. Of course, Bitcoin went to a high of $110,000 back in January, but we never got a daily close above $107,000. And I believe that a daily close above $107,000 could potentially pave the way to new all-time highs. And based on a couple of indicators that I do have in here, including again the MVRV pricing bands, we could be looking at a new all-time high of $116,000 to $145,000. As of right now, I'm leaning a little bit more cautious, right? Because I do believe that this recent move from $77,000 to $107,000 was too fast, too quick. And I do believe that there needs to be a little bit of pain in the market for prices to continue to go up, if they happen to continue to go up.
Are you happy to share some of those indicators? Don't have to go into details, but kind of like list them.
Yes. I mean, there are from different platforms, right? But again, your audience could probably find it anywhere. One of them is the MVRV pricing bands. I think that they're very accurate, telling you support and resistance levels.
Yeah, support and resist. Okay, fine.
Right.
Just just kind of like say, well, the things that I'm looking at usually are just give them some kind of like range. You don't need to go into details or share any kind of the secret, but kind of so Ali, what are really those indicators that you are looking, or maybe investors should pay attention in order to understand those price ranges?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm very transparent with the indicators that I'm looking at. The only thing where that is quite different, right, is that basically while on my X page, Ali_charts, I share just thoughts behind the ideas that I'm looking at. Under the paywall, right, for my subscribers, and actually give them like full detail into
Gotcha.
the analysis behind these indicators. And I do believe that one of the most important indicators out there is the MVRV ratio, right? If you combine that with the 365 year simple moving average of this ratio, you kind of like get golden cross and death crosses that basically they tell me from a macro perspective and from my spot positions when to get in and when to get out, right? And then whenever you're looking at basically where to actually sell the top, if you're trying to sell the top or sell the bottom, or understand where prices are going, I think that the MVRV pricing bands are the best for this. And these are the two indicators that I use the most. Of course, there are some more because I like to look at the amount of capital that is flowing into the market whenever I'm bullish, right? I want to confirm that, understanding whether new capital is flowing into the market or not, right? And for those, I mean, you can look at, for example, the aggregated market realized value net position change, and this one can be found in Glassnode. And as of, I mean, over the past month, what we can see is that $36 billion have flowed into the market, right? Which has significantly contributed to this rise that we have been seeing, but it's not the same amount of capital that was flowing into the market back in December, right? In December, flowing around $120 billion into the cryptocurrency market, and right now we're around 36 billion. So this kind of like divergence, if Bitcoin were to make an all-time high, this kind of like divergence in capital inflows tell me again to be a little bit more cautious around the current price levels.
Right, it's interesting because you see all these headlines and prediction by well-known people in the space. I think the price is going to go to 250, it's going to go to 1 million, and then tomorrow somebody is saying it's going to 500. So you know what I mean? It's kind of like people are guessing in a way, or they are saying numbers without really looking what are the fundamentals, and that is very difficult, especially if you're trying to say by the end of the year it is gonna be X. How can you say that?
Right. Like I look at level by level because I cannot predict the future, and I don't have a magic ball to be able to predict the future. So, and I don't know anybody that can predict the future.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I prefer to look level by level, and I feel that the MVRV pricing bands can tell me level by level what could happen. Like back in January, when Bitcoin was trading at around $110,000, that was the upper pricing band of the MVRV pricing bands, telling me that that's a key area of resistance. And what we saw then was a correction, right? So look, there are definitely reasons why people could say these price targets, right? I mean, from a technical perspective, there could be a massive cup and handle pattern forming on the weekly chart that actually predicts a move up to $230,000. But I personally believe, right, in early in the market that, I mean, I entered at $19,000, I exited at 100 and something $1,000. That's a good profit for me, right? Of course, you get some of these late buyers that are just jumping into the market right now, and then they get into crypto Twitter or crypto X, right? And they start looking at all of these price predictions. FOMO starts kicking in, and then they just get wrecked, right? So for that reason, I prefer to look at it level by level rather than making these bold predictions.
And in order to see an increase to, let's say, 1,000 by the end of the year, what should happen in terms of resistance price?
Right. So more than in terms of resistance, I will say, because like right now the resistance is at the previous all-time high, right? Which is like that range at 107,000, right?
Yes, in terms of support.
Right, right. If you break that resistance, then Bitcoin enters price discovery mode, and in price discovery mode, you just don't know where the next level of resistance it is. I mean, you can probably like chart it with the Fibonacci retracement indicator and try to predict certain levels, but you cannot really tell, right? But if Bitcoin were to break past that $107,000 resistance, what I would be looking at, right, is to understand whether money is flowing into the market, yes or no, whether people are actually buying this market or not, okay? And that will basically tell me whether the move is actually sustained, okay? And in that case, then I will potentially go bullish, right? Like some of the metrics that I was telling you about, right, is the net position change, right? Which, of course, it has increased by $36 billion over the past month, but it's not at the same levels as it was back in December, right? If I continue to see this metric increase past the $100 billion, right, then that's a clear indication that basically new capital is flowing into the market, and the strength of this uptrend is actually supported by new capital, right? Kind of like the same thing. Stablecoin reserves on exchanges is an extremely good metric to tell you whether people are investing or cashing out, right? Whether people are converting their stable coins for crypto or whether they're converting their crypto for stable coins, right? So a steep decline in stablecoin reserves across cryptocurrency exchanges will tell you that people are starting to convert stable coins for Bitcoin, right? And on the other hand, right, if you see a steep or a big jump in stablecoin reserves across cryptocurrency exchanges, then what it tells you is that people are starting to convert their cryptos for basically stablecoins, right? During that last move from November to December, where we saw Bitcoin go from 70,000 to around $110,000, what we saw was actually a huge spike in stablecoin reserves, right, across all exchanges. That was telling me that, okay, in this move up, people are actually booking profits, right? And what did we see later, right, was basically a correction from 110,000 around $75,000, right? Right now, after this big spike in profit taking, the stablecoin reserves have remained stable, where it's telling me that people are basically very cautious, and it's also telling me that while a lot of capital has flown into the market, right? We're talking about $36 billion, right? People are not necessarily converting their stable coins into cryptocurrencies yet. This coincides with actually a spike in leverage ratio across exchanges, which tells me, right, that this basically move that we have seen recently is actually fueled by leverage traders, right? Which the market and market makers tend to have tend to really try to crush these leverage traders, right? So for these are kind of like some of the reasons why I'm taking Bitcoin right now level to level, right? Because the market is telling me to be cautious right now.
Yeah. So, okay, I got the stable coin now. That's actually a very important aspect to look at. And then we have got this leverage position. So when the leverage position increases, is that a sign of cautiousness?
For me, it is a sign of cautiousness because so basically you have to take it as a combination of the metrics, right? If you are not seeing new capital flowing into the market, right, while the market is going up, and instead the only metric that is rising is leverage, then
Yeah.
you understand, okay, people are going crazy on the leverage, right? And this is a leverage move, and usually exchanges like want to liquidate all of these leverage traders because that's how exchange make money, you know. So in that case, that's a sign of caution, right? But if you're starting to see open interest rise, the leverage across exchanges increase, as well as the new capital inflows into the market also increase, as well as stablecoins reserves actually decrease across exchanges, those are all positive signs. That's basically telling you that it's actually a supported upward move, and there is a lot of sustained capital flowing into the market that will actually support prices rising.
Very interesting. So let's look beyond Bitcoin. And what I would like to understand is how are you viewing other tokens? So, for example, question, is Ethereum dead?
I do not believe that I do not believe that Ethereum is dead, and there are multiple reasons for that. Okay. One of the main reasons is that when the market is made out of sentiment, right? Out of the sentiment of all of the investors, right? So when people are euphoric, very bullish, the market will go down. That marks periods of top, right? When people are very, very depressed, right? Very, very negative around a certain coin or in the market, that's when bottoms are formed, right? You can remember back in the day what happened after the FTX blowout, right? There was multiple and multiple companies within the cryptocurrency space that were going bankrupt and bankrupt, right? The sentiment in the market was on the floor. Everybody was extremely pessimistic, right? Very depressed. Some people were angry, right? These are the type of emotions that you want to see for to understand whether a market is bottoming from a sentiment perspective, right? And now when you look at Ethereum, right, what is happening right now? People are saying that Ethereum is dead. People are saying that Vitalik and the foundation, they're all cashing out. People are saying that Solana has basically killed Ethereum, that nothing is happening on Ethereum, this and that, right? So these are the type of sentiments that you want to see in a market bottom. I do not believe that Ethereum is dead, and especially that feature of Ethereum staking ETFs, I think will generate a new wave of capital inflows into Ethereum. And let me explain when
Yeah.
you want, okay?
Yeah, I want you to explain because if Ethereum is not dead, okay, what is going to be the narrative that can drive a resurgence in that ecosystem?
Right. So there are multiple narratives. So basically, Ethereum right now continues to be the backbone of smart contracts in the space. Of course, many new things, new shiny things, which are more concentrated on speculation, right? Like launching meme coins and so forth, are launching on Solana, right? But Ethereum continues to be the backbone of smart contracts because it has been in the market for many more years, and a lot of applications have been actually built there. But I do believe that a new narrative for institutional investors will be the ability to generate extra yield on their assets. This is what institutional investors are for. All right. That's why they have different products, right, that are basically catered to generate extra yield so that they never make money, right? You can see, for example, right, there is a spike in Ethereum, in Bitcoin ETF flows, right? But at the same time, there is a spike in short positions across the CME Bitcoin futures, right? What institutions are doing is that they're hedging, right? They're going long on ETFs, but they're shorting on the futures market, right? Because institutions will never do not like to lose money, right? So regardless of where the price action goes, they will make money. And now with Ethereum, not only will they be able to do kind of like the same dynamic, right? Long the ETFs and basically short the futures market, but on top of longing the ETFs, they will start like generating extra yield based on those staking rewards on their Ethereum holdings. And I do believe that this could create a huge spike in institutional inflows into Ethereum if that ETF is actually approved.
But why Ethereum and not Solana for institutions, or not Bitcoin, for example?
Because you don't have a staking rewards on Bitcoin, for instance, right? So you can only benefit from the price appreciation, but you don't benefit. You're not given extra yield, right?
Well, there are ways that people try to do that.
There are ways, but not institutional ways, right? They're not currently on the market, and based on what I'm seeing, based on the filings, right? There is no institutional grade product that will give you extra yield on your Bitcoin by staking it or holding it somewhere, right? And actually, Bitcoin ETFs, they're charging you certain fees for holding those ETFs for you, right? For those custody services. So that is a big thing that is, I believe, is being dismissed in the market. And now when you talk about Solana, well, Solana, you can also stake Solana and so on, right? Definitely. But as of right now, we do not have a Solana staking ETF actually being filed or absolutely anything like that, right? And another point is that Ethereum has also been for a longer time in the market than Solana and has a bigger market capitalization than Solana, right? The more you talk about institutions, right? Institutions like to invest on safe assets. How come institutions weren't coming in when Bitcoin had a market capitalization of $100 million? Because it was just a very small asset, right? For them. Now that Bitcoin's actually surpassed a 2 trillion market capitalization, right? Now is when you see all of these investments from bigger institutions starting to come in, right? Because they buy and they understand that, hey, it is a safe asset, right? The moment that Bitcoin passes 10 trillion market capitalization, now you're gonna see even like more institutional adoption, right? Because again, institutions like to they don't like risk, and they like to invest on safe assets per se.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, that makes sense. What about Solana? What is the proposition there beyond the meme coin, which is something that I'm not really keen to talk about, just speculation. And is there any other use case or any other drivers or even what you are seeing on chain?
Right. So yes. All right. So Solana, and I don't want to sound like a Solana shield or like I'm shielding Solana or anything, right? I'm just looking at what the market is throwing at me, right? And while I'm bullish on Ethereum based on the market view of Ethereum and the market sentiment around Ethereum, I'm also bullish on Solana, and I do not believe that I have to compete between the two or absolutely anything like that, right? But I'm bullish on Solana because it has been able to prove, right, that it can handle all of these microtransactions, right, at a very low cost, right, and in the forms of meme coins, right, which basically tells you that, hey, as a payments platform, it can handle all of these transactions, and more importantly, right now, as we're seeing with the new administration in the United States, where they're starting to be a little bit more pro crypto, certain things within the government are going to be moved into a blockchain. I do believe that it is very likely that the government will create its own blockchain, right? But something very interesting, a new white paper that Solana just put out, right, was where they are planning to make Solana the blockchain for tokenized assets. Okay,
Okay.
this basically brings a whole new sort of adoption towards the network, right? Because now you're starting to see, kind of like the stock market could be running on Solana, right? Tokenized assets regarding real estate, commodities, securities, whatever can be running within this chain. And we have already seen that the chain can handle all of these transactions, right? Of course, I believe that we haven't seen a downtime on Solana in a while. Solana at a certain point basically was very criticized by the constant downtimes that it had. But I think that these issues are currently being solved, right? That are currently not solved completely on the Ethereum network, right? On the Ethereum network is still a little bit slow. Transacting on the network remains kind of like expensive compared to Solana, right? And I do believe that that issuing of tokenized equities on Solana will basically bring a new state of adoption, right, into the network.
Very Interesting. Is there anything else that you are watching at the moment very closely?
Right now, and this is from a trading perspective, right? And people will say, well, you're kind of like contradicting yourself, right? Because like if you believe that Bitcoin could be forming market top, how come you're not gonna tell me that you're bullish on Solana? Well,
Yeah, exactly.
right, like it is kind of like contradictory, but I am not bullish nor bearish. I'm just looking at what the market throws at me, right? And that's something that people sometimes don't understand, especially when you trade level by level, right? I do not believe. I'm not gonna buy Bitcoin. I'm gonna say like Bitcoin's gonna go to $1 million by December, right? I just have to go level by level. And Solana, level by level, is telling me to really pay close attention to that $200 resistance level. Okay, to pay very, 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 very close attention to that. Later on today, I will basically be dropping and maybe I can provide you also with some graphics that will
Definitely,
right,
definitely.
right, for YouTube and all. But there is a very interesting pattern developing on the Solana weekly chart. It's a textbook cup and handle pattern. It couldn't be more textbook. It really, you go to the textbook, you look at the pattern, and you look at Solana's weekly chart, and it's crazy, right? And I'm not bullish nor bearish right now, but I will definitely put some skin on the game if Solana were to break $200, right? My stop loss will be at around maybe $150, right? It's quite a big stop loss, right? But the upside potential based on this technical formation could take Solana up to maybe 1,000 or a little bit higher. Okay, so I'm really looking at this technical pattern, and that's basically what I'm currently looking for from a technical perspective.
Fantastic. Ali, thank you so much for coming on the show. I don't want you to share all your secret
No,
during
no
this
problem, no problem.
during this
Thank you so
interview.
much for having me, and in the
Yeah,
future, if
definitely.
you would like to hear a little bit more about what's happening, feel free to reach out for sure.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do.